Welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals. In this video, we're talking about why you should get a prenup. We're having technical difficulties today. I'm using Restream, and it has terminated my streaming attempt twice already. Twice. So I've created links and started recording, and it's gone off twice. I don't know why. I wish I did know why, but I don't. So we're going to continue on anyway. So if you're in the chat, speak up. Let me know that you're here. I've already had some people pop up in the other chats that we tried to have, balking at what we're trying to do here. So I understand why get a prenup. Like, why talk about prenups? Prenups are so unromantic, and it so spoils the mood, and it so takes away everything that a relationship is supposed to be, or that we think that they're supposed to be. It kind of seems like it ruins that magical romantic chemistry that you're supposed to recreate, that you see in all the hey Roman, you see in all these romantic comedy movies, and we kind of get the idea that that's what it's supposed to be like. Roman's aboard. It's good to see you here. But so in any kind of relationship, what's happening is, we don't like to say this, but tacitly there are a variety of there's some things being transacted. Now, I understand transactional relationships. If you're strictly transactional, you're at best a narcissist and at worst a psychopath, okay, or a sociopath. So I'm not advocating transitional type stuff, but what I am saying is that every relationship does include things. Transactions is what I mean. Transactions. Okay, it's transactional to a degree. There are some things in relationships that are transactional. Like, you would not be with a person if you were not getting something from them and they were getting something from you. And that something can be anything from friendship and companionship and intimacy and romance and meaning, a variety of other things that you might call intangibles, all the way up to and including things that are tangibles like resources and things like that. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to say why you should get a prenup, and I'm going to go through the paces of why, and then I'm going to say something at the end of the video which should be very much common sense to you about marriage, but you've probably never thought of, so make sure that you stay tuned. Now, I have a few slides lined up here that we're going to talk through, and let me go ahead and just put some things up there. So this audience that I'm talking to now mostly has a cultural Christian religious background for various reasons. Let me make it this way so you can see a little bit better. For various reasons, I've come to the conclusion that churchianity, the churchianity that we enjoy in the USA and in general, has absolutely nothing to do with the way that is Christ. The fake churchianity that we have has served to anesthetize people and insulate them from the realities in which we both live naturally and as a society. It keeps the people feeling righteous, virtuous, and moral for the values they affirm and the teams and sides they pick. I'm a this, I'm a that. All while numbing them from the pain of their model of life, which does not match reality. This anesthesia is typically effective until people find themselves in a courtroom or an unexpected funeral or some other tragedy. This is one reason that unwise people tend to go a bit loony as they get older. All the pain they've been insulated from their whole life comes crashing down when their model of reality simply can't hold up anymore. And so the problem is, the reason I'm having this talk is because Christianity insulates and anesthetizes us from the reality that's out there that will bite you and will get you. And what I'm trying to do is what I'm trying to help you do, which I wish somebody had done for me earlier. And this is not a sour grapes video at all. Okay, we cover a lot of principles on this channel that are designed, if you employ them, they will help you make better decisions and have less unnecessary suffering in your life and in the lives of the people you love, such as your family, especially your own children, especially 25, 40 years from now, 60 years from now, when you're not even around, okay? There are things that flow downstream from your bad decisions that you may not even feel the consequences of, but your kids and grandkids will, okay? You can live a quiet, peaceful life in complete bliss. So what I'm trying to do is help us as Christians have touch points in reality to wake us up from the delusion that we live in, because a lot of versions of Christianity are nothing different than a make-believe Dungeons and Dragons game that have nothing to do with reality. I'm here to wake you up. I'm here to shake you and slam you up against the railing and tell you to pay attention, because this stuff is coming your way whether you want it to or not. If you are not married, pay attention to the things that I'm saying today. These are things you need to know. And this video is a result of lots of people asking me about this kind of stuff. Having been a pastor in years past and having been raised as a strict fundamentalist Christian, now being the 40th generation of Baptist preachers in my lineage and with a theology degree, I am very well aware of all the Christian dogma and Sunday school answers with regard to marriage and divorce. I know them all. I don't want to get into a discussion or debate with any of that stuff. Okay, I got it. I know it. I've preached it for years. I know what all that stuff is. So let's not worry about that kind of. Let's not go there. Okay, so pay attention to what I'm saying. Don't just rattle off all the marital dogma from the Bible that you think you need to say. Listen to me. Okay, now. Sadly, today, I'm going to hit you, not sadly today, but what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to try to hit you with a dose of practical reality. And if you listen to me and apply what I'm saying, it can save you and your loved ones a lot of unnecessary pain. So in this video, we're going to be emphasizing practical realities. We're going to assume that people are already familiar with what churchianity would say, okay? And we will not spend our time rehearsing all the useless nonsense from churchianity that we already know what it says. Right. Rather than undermine, it can help keep the marriage together. And one of the things that we're going to point out later is just because a marriage is together doesn't mean it's a successful marriage. If you are miserable, that is also a failed marriage. And we'll get to that as we go. Okay. Yeah, this kind of religious thinking right here that this guy is saying, that's exactly what I'm trying to help you wake up out of. Okay. I know it undermines the vows and makes them only provisional. Okay. I understand all that. Don't stop saying that kind of stuff. Okay. We already know all that. We don't need to hear any of that right now. So stay tuned. What we're going to talk about in this session. In this session today, we are going to talk about these things, and they are the points of consideration. We're going to look at divorce rates, hypergamy, societal norms, career realities, age and opportunity, biological realities, relationship aspects, finances, a life of her own or his own. A lot of things that I'm going to be saying are not gender specific. Okay, that could go both ways, but you will see why some of them tend to go more often one way than the other. And skills and responsibilities, the degree and rate of development and consciousness of the two different partners, and then exceptions. When might it be okay to maybe not get a prenup? Okay, and if you can't get a prenup and you're already married, there is such a thing as a postnup. Okay, and you will see why a postnup can actually be a wonderful, loving, and romantic thing to do for your partner, and it is not an expectation of splitting up. It's a recognition of reality. It's almost like getting life insurance, and you don't want to die. Okay, I have life insurance right now so that if I die, Paula can be taken care of. That doesn't mean I want to die. It doesn't mean I'm planning to die, but it does mean that I recognize that it might happen. Okay, and so I am preparing for it in advance. We could look at statistics of divorce rates, and it seems that anywhere you pull up divorce rates, they go up and down depending on which statistic you look at. There are less and less people getting married today. There are people are getting married later and later today, and there is a high decline. There is a significant decline in the amount of people are having sexual relationships in general. Even hooking up and all that kind of stuff is declining. This is very interesting, and I would encourage you not to put not to jump to a causality in your not to jump to a moral causality in your mind for why that is. Oh, it's because of online dating. It's because of Facebook. Don't say it's because of anything and think that, okay? Stop having thoughts and listen, okay? One of the things we're going to talk about first is hypergamy. Now, hypergamy is something that is buried deep inside our brains. We don't, and everything that I'm going to say in this video today is you will find exceptions and may not pertain particularly to any specific individual or a specific couple, but generally, when considered as a whole, women tend to be attracted to men of equal or above their current status, and men tend to be attracted to women equal to or below their current status. And all through this, I'm not making the rules, I'm just reporting them. These are tendencies. Of course, there are exceptions, okay? But this can be anything from, let's say, social status. Let's go backwards and get my pen here. Your social status, career advancement, education, your health level and fitness level, your location, your lifestyle. Do you have an emotionally compelling lifestyle? Your personality, your social skills, your attractiveness, your income or wealth. And these are just samples. There's lots of other things that could be considered, but with all the things that could be considered, women tend to be attracted to men who are equal to or higher than them in these things, and men tend to be attracted to women who are equal to them or lower them in these things. Okay. Now there are exceptions, of course, but on the whole, hypergamous attraction seems to be embedded deep in the brain and it's subconscious. We don't even try to do this, and it exists across all known cultures. So it's not just an arbitrary societal construct. Okay. Some people in the chat spitting out their programmed opinions that aren't really your opinions, that kind of come from, this the expectations of the formula or the script that you've been programmed with. Let's try to steer clear of that. Okay, what I want to do is introduce some novel thoughts to you to consider. So one of the main things to consider: divorce rates. But there is a high probability that no matter what you believe, no matter what you think, you are probably there's a high chance that you will get divorced. When you look at all the things together, I know this divorce thing says 41% of first marriages will end in divorce, and those are estimates. Okay, people tend to say that 50% of marriages end in divorce. When you consider second and third marriages, that sort of thing, more like 56% of marriages end in divorce. Okay. So the stats are one thing. Statistically, there is a high likelihood, higher than I would be willing to bet a lot of money on, and now you're betting your life, there's a high likelihood that you will wind up divorced. Okay. And 50% is pretty high. And I know not me, right? And then there's hypergamy. Because of hypergamy, that embedded attraction that we have, it results in most men in the marriages, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, in a heterosexual marriage, the man is going to be more financially have more financial status and other kinds of status than the female. Not every time, but most of the time, and across the aggregate, when you're considering thousands of people, it is certainly the case on average as a whole. Now, with this, interestingly, one way to say this are attraction trends. Men tend to be interested in the Barbie. We want the girl. Women tend to be attracted by all the things that the Ken doll comes with: the house, the car, the boat, the status, the career. They look at the emotionally compelling lifestyle, and if the lifestyle is emotionally compelling enough, to some degree, the man that is in there is kind of interchangeable, right? The man, I'm not saying women aren't attracted to individual men, okay? But this is why a billionaire man who is not very attractive, not very much to look at, can wind up with gorgeous, beautiful women, okay? And it may sound like I'm being transactional when I say this, but you might say high value men, high value women. And women, in other words, when I say high value, what I mean is people who tend to have a lot of optionality. okay, because of various different circumstances. Maybe the woman is beautiful, maybe the man is rich, maybe the man is beautiful, maybe the woman, but for whatever circumstances, they have high optionality. So if you want to attract somebody who has high optionality, you're going to have probably high optionality yourself. Now, if you like what you're hearing, you're interested in what you're hearing, but I'm not covering your specific situation, maybe you would like to have a one-on-one chat. If you want to have a one-on-one chat with me before we go any further, as we cover the rest of this stuff, just to let you know, if you want to book a one-on-one consultation to discuss your specific scenario, and it doesn't have to be about this topic, it could be about any of the other topics that we cover on this channel, or in the Bible studies that we do, or the growth and development models, any of that stuff. You want to book a one-on-one consultation, go to beyondthefundamentals.com and scroll down on the homepage till you see the phrase book a one-on-one consultation, and it is a paid consultation. All right, I cannot afford to do that for free. There's too many people who want to chat about stuff, but I am here for you. If you want to click on that, I will apply the things that we've learned and covered and discussed on this channel to your situation, and maybe help you think more clearly about decisions that you should make, okay? Now, careers, when it comes to hypergamy, we need to consider that careers take time to establish success and status. They don't just come overnight for most people. Again, everything I'm saying is generalities here. What this means is two things. There's a magic line that happens at about the age of 30, okay? At the age of 30, men's careers tend to start, this is average again, men start to become more attractive to women after age 30, because there's a lot more stuff that comes with the Ken doll now, okay? Now, being more attractive, and I'm not just saying physical attractive, but what you might call the whole package, okay? Being more attractive, this also gives them more optionality. So after 30, it will be a lot easier, typically, if a man is in a career and he's progressing and he's earning more money, he's got his own car and his own house, he's financially stable. After 30, he tends to have a lot more optionality with women. One reason you might want to wait to get married is because you might have a better chance at finding somebody who's compatible with you and not having to settle after the age of 30, or after you have several things in place, like a compelling lifestyle, a steady job, financial stability, those kinds of things. Now, women, there are some realities that are just the facts of life. Being the biological carrier of children, they must balance childbearing and child rearing with the career. Now, married couples, men and women, can decide how they want to balance this out, but the biological reality is that the woman at least has to carry the child in her own body, and then she is not going to be completely back to normal physically even after the child is born for up to about 18 months after the child is born. Okay? So because of hypergamy, the more successful they are, the more successful the woman is, the fewer men she will find attractive. Let's say you have a career woman who has a career. She's also built her career, and now she's over 32. Now, because of hypergamy, women tend to be attracted over and up, men tend to be attracted over and down. Because of hypergamy, the more successful the woman is, the fewer men she will find attractive and appealing, and the fewer men will find her appealing, oddly enough. Now, I'm an odd cookie. I personally like a woman who is educated and is a professional. That is attractive to me, and I like women who I think are smarter than me. A little bit of intimidation there is a little bit fun for me. I kind of like that. Not every guy does. Most guys like over and down. Me and Paula are together. We're both professionals. We both work professional jobs. We're both educated. She actually has more formal education than I do. And after my formal education, I have certifications, CISSP and PMP, to do what I do professionally. But yes. So that is something to consider. And because of this, so the more successful a woman is in her career, the less likely it is that she is going to find a man that is to her fancy. Okay. The more likely it is that she will probably have to settle by the time it's time for her to get married. Okay, especially when you start backwards planning things. And we could get into the biology of everything, but we won't do that in this video. We'll have to save that for another video. So much information I want to share with you. So interestingly, before age of 30, women tend to have more optionality when it comes to dating and relationships. And after the age of 30, men tend to have more options. So it kind of swaps at 30, which means if you are a woman and you're interested in a certain kind of man, if you want a man who can provide for you or whatever else it is that you want, then you probably need to get that squared away before you are 30. Now, I know people are getting married later and later these days, and I understand that for a lot of good reasons. I understand that. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm trying to tell you what the societal trends are and what the attractiveness trends are, okay? So there's two components to relationships to consider. We have the transactional components. Those are usually tacit. In other words, we never say them, okay? Some women, when they're dating, if they've dated a lot of people on a lot of dating apps, what they will say is, after you've been on 117 first dates, it kind of seems like it's just job interviews, like you're just doing job interviews. And really what you're looking for is you're looking for somebody to be in relationship with, who you can have good transactions with. And I know that sounds kind of narcissistic and psychopathic. Oh, the programs. And then there's a psychological component. Now, the psychological component, this is what you mostly hear and see in the 5 love languages, which is a bunch of bunk, in romantic comedies, in dating advice from other places. You need to be a whole person. You need to love yourself. All that's nothing wrong with any of that. True stuff, right? But this deals with perception. It deals with emotional intelligence, level of affection. It deals with commitment. It deals with love, loyalty, sexuality, respect, and this list can go on and on and on. But there's a psychological component, and that's where we're comfortable talking about things. That's where we're okay making things explicit. We say it all the time. I love you. I love being around you. I love touching your skin. It feels so good. I want to be with you forever. We say all these kinds of things all the time. You're so attractive to me. I love the way you do this. We like to say all that kind of stuff. But what's also really going on now, there's a deep part of your brain that is performing a marketplace analysis of your potential partner, and you don't even know about it. There's certain things you want out of a relationship transactionally, and you're focusing on all this stuff overtly and explicitly, but tacitly, both of you are focusing on some of this stuff. The exchange of resources and value from one person to another. I heard a couple recently say it was an older man that got married to a younger woman. He was 60-something, she was 30-something. And the guy says, I take care of her, she takes care of me. And it's almost kind of gross. But when you're older like that, you're well aware of the reality of the situation. You're well aware that that's what's going on. And to some degree, that is what's going on. So you need to know that. You need to know there are a lot of tacit transactional things that, because of the way our society is constructed, none of us ever feel comfortable saying it. I mean, you're not going to say, hey, you're going to have sex with me 3 times a week and I'm going to provide a house for you. That sounds like prostitution at best and slavery at worst, okay? And so no one's going to come out and say that. But at the end of the day, that is what's going on, and that is a reality that we need to realize what's going on. And one of the things we're going to talk about in a few minutes is listen to me closely. Are you hearing me? I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit so you can see my face, because this is very, very important. Everything on the left that we're not comfortable talking about, that is enforceable in a court of law, right? Everything on the right that makes for good romance movies, that is not enforceable in a court of law. So while there's this deep, dark undercurrent part of your brain that is doing the transaction piece and nobody feels comfortable coming out and saying it, guess what? That stuff's coming out in court, in the form of alimony and half your house and all the things, half of your retirement plan, all that stuff's coming out in court because you never said it. Now, this other stuff that you were expecting in the transactional aspect of the relationship that never got said out loud, that's not enforceable by court. That's not enforceable by the law. So when the court comes down, whoever most of this stuff is coming from, they're going to get it in the teeth. Okay? While the other person basically gets off scot-free, and essentially, in some cases, they won the lotto just by having you in their life for a short period of time. And you were so naive to allow it to happen. They have nothing. They come in, cha-ching, they take half your stuff, they're gone. Now they're a millionaire, and you're left with half your stuff, which they did not help you build up. Okay? I know that doesn't sound romantic, but that's what goes on. That's what's going to happen. So bear this in mind. So when you have a financial asymmetry, this is when it's very important to have a prenup. And we're going to talk more about this in different terms in a few minutes. But when all this stuff is going on, because of hypergamy, there is typically financial asymmetry. Because women are attracted to men who are higher in status and education and earning potential and wealth than they are, that's who they usually wind up with. And so there is a financial asymmetry. Well, guess what? Whoever's on the high end of the seesaw, okay, or the low end of the seesaw, however, if their pockets weigh more, I guess they're on the low end of the seesaw. Whoever's on the low end of the seesaw is getting emptied out at the end of the relationship at the power of the court, which almost gives away the thing that I'm going to tell you later about marriage that you never thought of, maybe never thought of, that may shock you when I say it. Okay? And okay, it's also important if you're considering getting married that you have a woman that has a life of her own. Okay? In other words, what do you mean a life of her own? You want a woman who has her own friends, family, and she's occupied with them. You don't want a woman who is suffering from the Oedipus complex with her mother, who is attached to her and goes and sees her every day, and her mother's her best friend. You don't want that. But somebody who has a good relationship with their parents, friends, family, they go out with their friends, female friends, they have hobbies, maybe they have an occupation, they have a job, they have activities. And I'm not telling you what any of those things should be, but they need to have some kind of life of their own. Why? Women with no life of their own will be looking for the man to be everything to them. You're going to have to be their occupation. You're going to have to be their best friend. You're going to have to be all the things, okay? And that's not how men and women have been historically. Men and women historically, even when married, have spent very little time together. Men spend a lot of time with men. Women spend a lot of time with women. And in our society today, we're expecting our spouse to be all the things to us. Your spouse is your therapist and your best friend, and the things you do all the things with, and your partner, your lover, your intimacy, all that stuff, all bundled up in one. And there's nothing with sharing all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is that eventually you are going to burn out. Okay? And how many qualities is she bringing to the table if she doesn't have a life of her own and she's sucking you dry of all your time and attention? It's going to burn you out. And then eventually she is going to her beauty will fade, that kind of thing. I saw a video where they compared this to construction workers. There comes a time when the reason she entered the relationship, this class of woman enters a relationship who does not have a life of her own in any way, doesn't really have a job, doesn't really have hobbies, doesn't really have friends. Okay? There's some men are attracted to women like that. And those women are probably going to leave or get left. Now, so this will ultimately fail. Now, two people who happen to be together but miserable, listen to me. Two people who happen to be together but miserable also constitutes a failed marriage. Okay? Those who document the failure should not be stigmatized for their maturity. In other words, those who actually go through, and people who have failed marriages but fail to go through with the paperwork and are just roommates, they're virtue signaling to themselves and everybody else, okay? They're bullcrapping themselves. They're balderdashing themselves. You know what I'm saying? They're fooling themselves. They're deceiving themselves. Might as well go ahead and put it on paper and own it. Okay? Women who have no life of their own, listen to me, are more aggressive during courtship, and they are more acrimonious and litigious during divorce. Okay? In other words, they're coming after all your stuff when the fur hits the fan. Now let's talk about traditions. In your tradition, in this audience, we have a lot of Christians in here, or professing Christians, Mammon church Christians. Isn't really Christian. We have a lot of churchianity people who call themselves Christians. No matter how much a society has changed, men and women are still expected to approach women for a date. Men are still expected to approach women for a date. You would think in our current society, everybody's trying to say everybody's equal. Remember, equal does not mean the same, but for some reason, we don't have, every once in a while it does happen, but we don't have women instigating these things. It's typically traditionally expected for the men. The man is expected to approach a woman for a date. The man is expected to proposition a woman for intimacy, and the man is expected to propose marriage to the woman. Now, I understand there are exceptions to this, but we're talking about generally in our society. What this means is that the man is inviting the woman to take part in the life that he has built along the course that he has set, because he is asking her to come into his life. In other words, you better have a life. You don't want her life to be the framing of the relationship. You're going to be resentful. You're not going to be in a life that you like, and you're going to wind up being miserable or leaving. You may stay married, but you'll be miserable. You don't want to start going down that road. Okay. And so variations from this, once this is in motion, will need to be negotiated. So bear in mind the traditional role. Men, before you get married, you need to make sure that you have a life direction that you are going, because when you ask a woman to join you, you are asking a woman to come into your life and go on this with you. Now, I know there's a lot of folks out there, well, we have an equal marriage where we both do equal things, and that's easier said than done. And when I say this, I actually think me and Paula actually do have that. We kind of have everything split up equal, but there's a little bit of asymmetry there, where when it comes to certain things, there's a little bit of directionality and vision that I provide, and there's a degree that she is along for that ride. And so men, you need to have this squared away before you ask a woman to come on board with you. So that's very important. Now let's talk about separations of skills and responsibilities. I'm going to do a separate video on this part, because it's very, very important that you understand what happens is men and women don't marry each other, especially if you're Christian, okay? Or when I say Christian, I mean typical American Christian, like you're a fundamentalist Baptist or a Calvinist or a Presbyterian, something like that. If you're a serious Christian of any kind, Catholic, doesn't matter. If you take your faith seriously, you're typically not marrying the person. You're marrying a set of expectations that your religion has informed you should abide in that role, okay? And as long as everybody minds the role, you're married to the role, you see? You're marrying an idea, and it just happens to be embodied by this empty-headed NPC who is also marrying an idea. So you really aren't in a relationship with each other. You really don't love each other. One of the reasons men especially should wait longer till they get married is because they're still Pinocchio. They haven't become a real boy yet. You need to wait till you become a real boy before you start inviting somebody else into a relationship with you, because you aren't you yet, okay? You need a little time to become you. Right now, you are just a conglomeration of all the expectations that have been put together based on other people's yardsticks and other people's rulers. What's the church expecting me? What do my parents expecting me? What's society expecting me? What's my job expecting me? What does the military expect of me? You have all this stuff. You're just a conglomeration of all those things, probably till about 30, 35 or so, okay? So you're not even a real person. And if you grew up Christian or you've adopted Christianity, you are what is a husband supposed to be, and you have all these rule sets in you. And she's marrying that, and you're marrying that for her. You're not marrying each other. You're not even in relationship. And so Oh, the man mows the yard. When it comes to skills and separation of skills and responsibilities, people go by party line on this. Oh, well, the man should do all the outdoor work. You should work on the car and mow the yard and take out the trash, and I'll clean the kitchen and do the dishes and vacuum the house and that sort of stuff. But what you need to understand, whoever set all those traditional complementarian roles, all right, they don't live in your house. You do. Okay, you two are the ones who have to live with the outcome. And if you're not happy with how something is, you need to negotiate it until it is. Even the small things. I don't like eating off these plates. I don't like using these forks. These forks are too light. Can we get some heavier ones? Negotiate all the small things to get things to where you now don't be ridiculous and don't be so hard edged that you can't you're impossible to get along with, but reasonably negotiate for what you want, and at a very minimum be able to clearly state what you want, know what you want. A lot of men 30 35 don't even know what they want. And why a lot of men go through midlife crisis is because they haven't learned appropriately how to be selfish. The last time they were selfish was when they were 15. So when they're 40, they start to realize, I'm going to die one day. I've never done anything for myself because I've been so committed to duty to my family and my job in the military and my kids and all this that I've never done anything for me. And then they start doing things for themselves like a 15-year-old would. So they go to buy the sports car, they get divorced, start getting all the hot girls and that kind of thing. Well, you need to budget out your selfishness so that you can do it appropriately. In other words, you need to take care of you. You need to do what you want, because if you don't, you're going to be full of resentment, and the other people in your life aren't going to enjoy being around you. Right? Women tend to be better at being appropriately and maturely selfish than men are. They're really good at delayed gratification. The problem is they delay too much. Too much time comes along. So separation of skills and responsibilities, you need to make sure that you negotiate this within your household. And the problem is this: if you come from a churchianity background, and I see some of them in the chat here, if you come from a churchianity background, you're typically okay with, I'm the man, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to bring the bacon home, I'm going to go earn all the money, and then she's going to stay home and be a housewife and raise the kids, and maybe even in some cases homeschool. Okay. Now, that's the situation that I was in. Now, in my case, I kept my end of the bargain. She did not keep her end of the bargain. That became a huge problem. Okay. I had a kid repeat a grade. I had a kid spend an entire year not doing any schoolwork at all. And they kept telling me straight to my face that they were completely up to date and had good grades. I had to actually go looking into the papers for myself to find out that everybody was lying to me this whole time. And I wound up starting having arguments in 2015 about the kids' education. And then it took till 2018 to finally get something done about the education, when I had a 9-year-old that was completely illiterate. So you may wind up in a situation, yeah, you start off, everybody's got all these wonderful, good Christian values. You've got your end of the bargain. She's got her end of the bargain. Well, guess what? She's not keeping her end of the bargain. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here. It's just life. It happens. I'm not bitter about it. I'm okay. Everything's fine. My life is wonderful. I'm loving life. But guess what? The court does not care about her end of the bargain. Understand? And your kids, when they are illiterate and 25, the employer will not care that their mother didn't hold up her end of the bargain. Someday you are going to have to do something about that. Okay? You are going to have to pick up slack for where your partner didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And that's what's going on. So you need to think about that well in advance. And when you divvy things out like that, and all the responsibilities are on you for all the money and the housing and the cars, guess what? All the court, when everything falls apart and you have to do something for the sake of your kids or yourself or whatever reason decides it. Maybe she runs off and cheats on you, whatever. I don't know. I'm not here to discuss what are the biblical grounds of divorce. We're talking about practical realities here. Talking about practical realities. I asked my professor when I was at the University of Mobile, I was like, what do you think about divorce? He gave me the best answer he could ever give me. It's the most wise answer. 2 words. It happens. And that's the reality. That's the reality. That's the only position you need to know on divorce. Forget all the things you think you know, all the Bible verses, all the doctrines you've argued out. Here's the thing. It happens. That's what you need to know. and it's probably coming your way with a high statistical probability it's coming your way. The number one cause of divorce is marriage, okay? People who don't get married won't get divorced. And I'm not disparaging marriage here. And you'll see, I'll talk in a few minutes to try to get you to understand where I'm coming from on this. Something else to consider that was in our chart, okay, is growth and development models. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this right now, but on this channel, we've covered growth and development models like Fowler's stages of development, which are really capacities. And then we look at spiral dynamics, which is really an assessment of awareness or consciousness, okay? So throughout the marriage, you are going to grow in capacities and consciousness and awareness at different rates. I think that if a couple enters into marriage understanding what the different stages are, and by the way, these are just models, all models are wrong, some are useful, and every individual is different, okay? But understanding your partner's going to go through a lot of changes, and because of studies that have been done on human beings for years and years and years and years, we can kind of predict what those changes are probably going to be and what those changes look like. Okay, I know a couple right now who's going through some of them right now. And it can be kind of scary to your spouse if they don't know what's up. And when you don't know what's happening, sometimes a spouse can get spooked and decide to leave. And you don't, like, if they leave you, what do? You're stuck. Okay. So you need to be able to predict this kind of thing. So and you may advance to stage 5 when you're 38. And some, especially in American churchianity, here's something to know. A lot of people never make it out of stage 3. They never make it out of stage 3. And when you both get married, you're both stage 3. And let's say one of you goes to stage 5. Well, if you've been stage 5 for very long, dealing with a stage 3 person is kind of like dealing with a child. It's like, I mean, imagine being, a 30-year-old professional adult and your only companionship is a 4-year-old. It's not very challenging. It's not much of a companion. It's not much fellowship. There's not much there for you. You don't see things eye to eye. There's not enough in common in order for you to be getting any kind of edifying interaction. And if one of you advances to stage 5 and the other one stays in stage 3, it's like living with a child that you're supposed to be intimate with and have respect for, which is very difficult to do. Now, I know all the rules about having to stay married, but I'm telling you, when that happens, when there's that kind of a disparity and the couple doesn't know what's happening to them, they're frustrated and resentful, and they don't even know why, okay? So this is another one of those things. Sometimes I have discussions with people about their stage of development, and when I will ask them about their life, and I can give them an assessment on what I think their stage of development is and what their level of consciousness is. Now, I can be wrong. I'm not perfect or anything, but having been a pastor, having been a military officer, having been a commander twice, having been a father, having been quite a few things with quite a few years of experience, having studied psychology, I'm not licensed or credentialed, having a theology degree, having done counseling for years and years and years, professionally in the military and pastoral as a pastor, I think I have some information that can help, okay? So just bear that in mind. If you got a personal issue, again, like we said before, if there's something you want to talk to me about, we do have one-on-one consultations. But this stages of development, stages of consciousness thing is a very interesting thing. And when you're stage 3, you don't know anything about this, and it catches you by surprise. So I'm telling you out there, if you are planning on getting married, you need to know that you are both going to change in ways that are quite predictable, and it would behoove you to become informed about what those are, so that you can manage them together as they come, okay? And you can get into stage 5 awareness without having stage 5 capacities. And you can get into stage 5 capacities while still only having stage 3 awareness. So you can have, there's all kinds of metrics by which you can be at different levels on different things, all within yourself, okay? And that's one of the many things that we talk about in our growth and transformation series playlists that we have, which I highly encourage people to look into. Now, here's the big news, okay? that you need to know when it comes to marriage. All right? Tracking? Pay attention. Marriage is already a prenup. Understand me? It's already a prenup with the specifications set by the state for a broad generality consideration of things. What marriage basically is for most people is a legal document that gives the woman the power because of now I understand sometimes it's the other way around, but typically because of hypergamy and everything else, typically the man has more money and status and that kind of thing. So in most situations, marriage is what it is basically for most people. It's a legal document that gives the woman the power to come after the man, everything the man has worked for, with the full force of the state in her pocket if the relationship fails or if she becomes unhappy with it for any reason. She can come after you with the state behind her. That's what marriage is. So aside from less common situations, the man typically does not have any protection against this or any asymmetry of force or any symmetry of force with which to address this looming vulnerability he now has once he has gotten married. Marriage is a legal status in the eyes of the law that gives the government the prerogative to the disposition of all your goods and assets. So imagine the proposal going that way. Imagine the woman is the one proposing. Listen to me. Imagine the woman is the one proposing, and she says, "Hey, Joe, whatever the guy's name is, I want you to sign this document that promises you'll never leave me, and if you do, I get to take all your stuff and all your kids." Who's going to do that? Well, when you get married, that's what you're doing. It is a prenup. Marriage is a prenup. I know marriage is nuptials, but it has prenuptial things built into it already predetermined by the state, which is going to be adjudicated by a judge who's going to decide the disposition of all your stuff. Baby, do you love me enough to put all of your belongings and future children into the hands of a judge that you've never met before? That's basically what a woman is saying when she says she wants a guy to marry her. Okay, it's a legal status which gives. So what a prenup agreement is, all it is instead of letting the state write the prenup terms for you, we are going to write our own prenup terms. So what a prenuptial agreement, all it's doing is taking the power of the state away from the situation, and you're simply tailoring, like life insurance. You don't want the thing to happen, but it probably is going to happen. So you're taking the state out of the equation, and you are using some self-determination for you to determine what happens if the dissolution of the relationship takes place. Then you get to decide. So you have to understand that there are already contingencies in place, but they're decided by the state. All you are doing with a prenup is deciding to customize what those consequences are for your relationship, which you're kind of stupid to not do. And I think when you frame it that way, a prenuptial agreement is actually a loving thing in which you're using self-determination instead of the state coming down, instead of the woman having the power of the state in her back pocket. So Richard brings up a really good point. He says, in many cases, you don't even have to be married, just dating for a couple of years in California. You even have to pay child support for a kid that's not yours. Talk about progressive. That's kind of crazy. So also you need to bear in mind common law marriages, things like that. Different states have different common law marriages, and common law marriages, some states have no common law marriages. And what's a common law marriage? It's typically, now Richard says dating, but typically it has to do with cohabiting. If you decide to live together, in some states after you do it for a year, in some states as soon as you cohabit for one night. Doesn't mean just spend the night, but as soon as you decide to live together, and it's even just one day, that constitutes a marriage for legal purposes in the eyes of the law. And now you are vulnerable to the whims of the state and a judge you've never met to decide the disposition of all your goods and everything that you've worked for. Since a man is the one that is inviting the woman into his life, because he's the one that proposes the date, he's the one that proposes the chance at intimacy, and he's the one that proposes marriage. Okay, since the man is asking for all this, he needs to have his life course set up so he has something to invite the woman into. And if you're just in a delusional state of mind, meaning you're just in love or you're just using religious values, make sure your woman fears the Lord, all this kind of stuff. Don't think you're harming yourself when you think in religious ways, okay? From the practical realities. No matter how religious you think, God will protect whatever it is you're thinking. Practical reality is going to hit you hard over the head. It's coming soon to a theater near you, and you better get ready for it. So people have religious concerns. They say, oh, let me bring my little slides back up over here. Say, oh, it's not going to happen to me because I'm smarter. I've been trained better. I've studied the Bible more. I know all the things, and so divorce isn't going to happen to me because I'm more conscientious and prepared, and I know Christian doctrine about marriage better, and I've read the 5 love languages. Divorce isn't going to happen to me. And then your religious component. You got all these religious thoughts, like what you should and shouldn't do is, in feeling righteous for believing certain things about marriage, is weighing more heavily on you than the practical realities that are inevitably coming your way when things do not go as you planned. So these ideas, our churchianity kind of religion is more or less a mental illness that impairs us from making good decisions and being smart about how we live our life. Okay. So Adrian says, so for the woman, a prenup would be something she wouldn't want, as it's protecting only the man. It can protect her in many ways as well, but the woman, you don't want a woman gathering wealth by jumping from man to man. So unless the woman is a gold digger, she is not going to have problems with the man wanting to protect everything that he's earned. Feminism has lied to women these days, and women, they get their career and they get their job and they're advancing. Women can do everything a man can do, and sometimes they can do things men can't do, and sometimes they can do it better. There's no argument about that. There's no argument about what can be done. But there are certain things like hypergamy that is built into people. What people tend to be attracted to, and what a woman who's 35 and really good in her relationships, or really good in her career, okay, she's done really well in her career, she's 35, she winds up having to settle for a man that is attractive in some ways, it is maybe good in bed or some things like that, but he doesn't earn as much as her, so the transaction of value is going from her to him. She's earning more money. She's providing the place to live, of all the things, and then she's calling the shots. She's making the decisions because all the stuff is coming from her anyway. Now, people can do what they want. You can have that arrangement if you want to, but when women tend to be finding themselves approaching that situation, they will start saying things like, "Why would I even get married?" And that's the situation that a man is in right now. Why would I even get married? What's in it for me? That's what the women are asking when they wind up having to settle for husbands who make less than they're having to call all the shots, the transactions of value and resources coming from them to the man. Okay. They start asking this question, what's in it for me? And so it's not selfish for the man to also ask the exact same kind of question. What's in it for me if I'm providing all this stuff? So unless the woman is a gold digger or trying to just get everything she can, uh, yeah, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Absolutely. And Jesus said, I think in Luke 16, the children of this world are much wiser or shrewder than the children of light. And this is one of the cases where this is the case. Okay. Now there are some exceptions. You might be able to get away with not having a prenup if she has a life of her own. She has her own friends. She has her own events. She has her own activities. She has all that going on. Like if I know this is sad to say, me and Paula never want to be apart. We are so in love and addicted to each other. But at the same time, if something happened to me, Paula would still be busy. She would still have friends. She still has places to go. If something happened to her, I would still be busy. I still have friends. Still have things to do and places to go. Okay. So some exceptions might be if she has a life of her own, if she has, if y'all have no children, because the disposition of the children can get very acrimonious and litigious, and if there is financial symmetry. If you're making about the same amount of money and there's no expectation that one of you is going to have to pay alimony to the other one or anything like that. Because I know what people say, but then when all is fair in love and war, when it comes down to the end, it's not going to be pretty. And so maybe in these situations, there might be exceptions where maybe a prenup is not needed because there's no leverage one way or another. But think about a man. By the time a man's really not ready for marriage financially, probably till he's 30 something, has built his career up a lot. And there's stories of people who, when they're in college, they're inviting women to come along with them and join their journey, but they're living in the dorm. They don't have a lot of money, and they're still studying law or medicine or whatever they're doing. And women don't see all the things that come with the Ken doll yet. Okay, it's kind of like a company when you want to get in on the ground floor. If you get on the ground floor of a company, you're a partner as that company and you grow together. And you're a shareholder, you're a partner, and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you wait for the company to make itself first, so the man he can't land the women that he likes, and so he winds up building his own empire. And then after about 30, all the resumes start coming in. Well, when you want to go associate with a company that's already built itself without you, you're just going to be a salary earner at that point. Okay. So the woman can have a place as a passenger on the boat, but she's not going to be, co-captain or anything like that if she's a Johnny come lately to the scene. And nobody would certainly have the right to take half of everything that man spent time building up to so that he could attract a woman of high optionality. Okay. So go take your high optionality somewhere else and don't take my stuff with you, kind of thing. Now, I know this kind of sounds cold and rigid and very transactional and that sort of thing. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to wake you up to practical realities that are very, very real when it comes to real life and relationships. What is real life? It's how you conduct yourself. Life is a series of encounters. And so real life is how you conduct yourself in those series of encounters. So what I'm trying to do now is to get you set that up properly, correctly, have good encounters, make wise decisions, shake you up into reality. Now, if you have a situation that you want to talk about one-on-one, you can go to the website, you can scroll down on the homepage, and you can click book a one-on-one session, book a one-on-one consultation beyond www.beyondthefundamentals.com. You can book a one-on-one consultation with me, and I will spend 1 hour with you talking about your personal situation and maybe give you a bunch of things to consider that might help you make the decision that is in your best interest. Now, I can't make decisions for you, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to try to inform you of all the different things that maybe you could be thinking about so that you can make a proper decision. Okay. Prenups are for double-minded people. Double-minded or unstable in all their ways. We know the verse. Okay. And this is what we were talking about earlier. We don't formulaic religious thinking doesn't help anybody. Okay. It's life. You wouldn't say life insurance is for double-minded people. And when you get married, like I said earlier, I don't know if you didn't hear this, Alfred, but when you get married, there's already a prenup there. There are already contingencies in place set by the state, and a judge that you've never met before in your life is going to determine the disposition of everything you've worked hard for all your life at the end of that relationship. So if based on statistics, the chances are divorce has a high likelihood of coming your way. You would be dumb not to protect yourself from the potential inevitability of that coming your way. All right. So thanks for the comment here. Oh, wow. This is good. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this session has helped you to think about the concept of marriage and divorce in more practical ways, in ways you haven't thought of before, but specifically in more practical, realistic, hard-hitting, reality kind of ways. Because while we are Christians and we love the Lord and we read the Bible, we also find ourselves in this particular society. And this particular society has certain aspects to it that you need to know. Now, what are some alternatives? You have to understand, okay, what is a marriage? There's the religious debate about what a marriage is, and then there's the state document about what a marriage is. An alternative to this. Now, if you live in a common law state, after you've lived together for so many years, this isn't going to help you. But if you happen to live in a state or a place where there is no common law marriage, it is possible to go to a church and have a ceremony and wear rings and call yourselves. That is a perfect, legitimate marriage in the eyes of God, to go to a church or have a ceremony on the beach, wherever you want to have one. Maybe you don't want to do it in a church. Go have a ceremony, invite your friends and family, have somebody perform the ceremony. You have a ceremony and you publicly, in front of witnesses, declare and commit your love one to another. And you can wear a ring and call yourself married. That's not a lie. That's absolutely fine. The state license for marriage is just a legal documentation. Originally, it's just to recognize marriage that happened elsewhere. So the original idea of marriage isn't that the state is what marries you. It's you get married in your tradition, at your church, or by your priest, or by whatever you want. And then the state will recognize that, oh, these guys are married. So let's file that marriage with the state for tax purposes and all these other things. Now, there are things such as taxes, such as being next of kin and the right to see somebody in the hospital if they're dying and that kind of thing, that it helps to be married on paper with the state for a lot of these things. So you have to make those decisions. Now, a lot of that stuff can be handled with power of attorney type stuff. You can get powers of attorney in each other's names for all those kinds of things. Limited powers of attorneys for very specific things is what I would recommend. Don't have a general POA for anything. But there are things you can do. Okay, a marriage ceremony without the state being involved is just as legitimate, in the eyes of God, as one on the state, if that's a concern. But those are decisions you have to make. But there are some alternatives that are out there. Okay. Yeah. Roman says we live in a society. All right. When the Bible was like in the New Testament, you can tell from Paul's letter to Philemon that he's not particularly a fan of slavery, but slavery exists. So he also has to it is part of the economy, and Paul's not going to overthrow it by himself. So you have to give people instructions for how to behave if you find yourself in that scenario. Just like if you're writing instructions for how a Christian should behave in North Korea or in the Russian gulags or in the desert of Saudi Arabia, they might all be a little bit different. Okay. Christianity is not an American societal thing. There's very practical realities and concerns. All right, I see some questions here. Remember, if you like what you're hearing here and you want to support the channel, we have 5 different ways that people can donate. If you are kind enough to go to our donate page, you can either go there to www.beyondthefundamentals.com and click on the donate page, or you can scan this QR code at the top left-hand side of the screen, or this QR code, and it will take you to that page. If you like to hear content like this and you want to hear more of it and you want to support what we do, support us. And by the way, if you do support Beyond the Fundamentals and you want to have a one-on-one consultation, whatever your support amount is will be deducted from what you would owe for that, for what the price of that one-on-one consultation would be for you, because they are paid consultations, and that will be taken into consideration. You just have to shoot me an email, let me know what you have in mind. But yes, we operate based on support from people like you. Thanks to everybody who already supports us. Couldn't do it without you. And this has been fun. Let me know in the comment section what you think. And let me know also what topic you would like me to talk about next, whether it's with regard to relationship, growth models, scripture, Bible doctrines, whatever. And we'll see if we can get it added to the queue. All right, guys. Have a good one.